Welcome to Brandstorm, the podcast that talks to the people behind America's brands. I'm Dan Trzinski, president of Platypus Advertising and Design.
And I'm Nancy Christopher, PR director at Platypus. Well, we're going to be talking about a very competitive space today, Dan.
Okay.
Higher education. How do private colleges compete with state universities? Or for that matter, how do religiously affiliated universities compete with its private and public counterparts? Here to talk about marketing higher education is Dave Murphy, Vice President of Marketing and Communication for a prominent Jesuit School, Marquette University in Milwaukee. Welcome to Brandstorm.
Thanks.
Okay, I have one question before we start. Are your two questions going to be on the final? Should I be taking notes?
There isn't a test, is there?
Well, welcome, Dave. Welcome to Platypus. And you've had a great career in marketing even before you were with Marquette. Give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. Let's see. I actually kind of in high school knew I wanted to be in this field, which I think may be a little atypical. So I was already kind of zeroed in on media-related activities and was in junior achievement and that kind of thing. Actually was at a TV station in junior achievement in high school. And so studied that in college with a bachelor's in mass communication and had an internship at another TV station, worked at a couple of radio stations, and then actually worked at one radio station, which is familiar to both of you, WISN. So.
Yes.
Well, and you and I worked together.
That's right.
At WISN TV.
Yeah.
So
just a few years ago.
Just a few.
And so, I think...
Decades ago.
Okay, moving along. After sort of getting my feet wet in media, I had an opportunity to move to a small boutique ad agency. And lo and behold, I stayed there for 25 years. And so, again, this is a bit atypical because I think in the field you'll find that most people move around a little bit. But
Sure.
It was always an opportunity to grow with the firm and with the clients, and started as a writer-producer, moved into a role as creative director and a partner eventually. And so it was a great run. And then about 10 years ago, I had an opportunity, was presented to me to come to Marquette University as their senior director of brand marketing. And it seemed like the right time in life, and I said yes. And about 5 years ago, I was asked to sit in the role of interim vice president in the office when my predecessor left. And here I am today, vice president.
Wow. And
Awesome.
You're charged with leading Marquette's branding, marketing, and communication initiatives, and everything that impacts, the academic reputation, enrollment, fundraising, alumni relations. I mean, that's a lot of plates spinning, Dave. What's it like?
Yeah, now that you put it that way, I feel like I have to get right back to work.
Yeah. Do I have time to be here?
Right. You know what? It is a robust series of activities with the job, but it makes it interesting. I kind of categorize it as maybe the 4 A's. I think one is awareness, bringing awareness to students in terms of that enrollment. One is certainly representing the academic excellence of the institution from a marketing point of view. And then I think certainly alumni relations and advancement and helping fundraise for the university. And then lastly, I think athletics becomes that 4th A. And it's we can probably talk a little bit more about what its role is in the marketing process.
Yeah, we have that question coming up.
Yeah,
sure. I'm sure it's easier when there's a winning season.
Yeah, right.
But let's start with some basics. How do parents versus students evaluate when obviously I remember when I was going through it with my daughter, both parties have opinions, and it's usually a somewhat
stress-free
of
experience,
a cooperative experience at some level.
I think that still remains, and actually I'll maybe add a little personal perspective on this as a parent, and my daughter just started this semester as a freshman, so
congratulations.
I'm fresh to the process.
Okay.
From a personal point of view. And actually, it helps me view it from a professional point of view, too, because I'm kind of the customer that's experienced this. So, and then I also have a son who's at Marquette University. Both are at Marquette University. My son's a senior. So I can almost empathize the level of emotional stress that parents and students go through in this major decision. It's a big financial decision. It's a big life stage decision.
But there's also pride and excitement and the thrill of your kids planning their futures. So.
It's super exciting too. You're absolutely right, Nancy. And You can see that in the parents when they are on campus with their students. It's always fun for me when parents take tours with the students. It's just fun to, sometimes I just sort of lag behind if I'm walking along and just listen in. But to the question, I think it is a continued collaboration. I think, students today really are pretty well informed about the process. They have the advisors at their schools that are supporting them. They have technology to research, and they do research. And, I think the role of the parent perhaps is one to set some guidelines, some parameters, maybe saying, hey, did you consider taking a tour of this school? Or did you, make sure they have exposure to all of the appropriate points along the process so they can make an informed decision. And certainly the financial component of this, the parents play a key role.
Sure.
And there's an education process with the student on that front too. So it's a long process. Your junior years become pretty key.
Sure.
In high school, but it actually kind of starts even earlier than that, with pre-ACT tests and things like that.
Is there one key common driver that really boils down to this is why I'm going here or there?
Well, I don't know if there's one, but I'd say that when I think about it, I think the tour is an important component of the process, and being in the physical
The experience
space,
they have while they're
yes,
in the tour?
Right. I think that's a pretty key component. So you can't underestimate the role that admissions has in making that a successful experience.
But if a student has come to Marquette and they've gone on a tour and you kind of know they're interested, what messaging, how do you market to them from that point?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a long process of multiple touch points. So your probably logical question would be, well, what are the channels used in that? And so in today's world, certainly digital communication is a big part of that, digital and social. And, I think I saw a stat not too long ago about there's like 5.9 hours of the day students will use digital media.
Wow.
So,
So that's even been a change. You've been there 10 years. What a change in the last 10 years.
When I started 10 years ago, I remember Google buying YouTube.
Yeah.
And I knew right away, well, wow, that's going to be a key tool,
Sure.
for example. Yeah, I mean, the change that we've had just on our social media and digital has been huge. And by the way, that 5.9 hours a day, 3.3 of it is on their phones.
Wow.
That's just amazing. I mean, when I was growing up, it was, of course, TV. I mean, I watched TV probably too much, but,
Then you got a job in it.
Then I got a
Right.
job in TV. I was very lucky.
See, that worked.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I you know what, though? All of those channels are still relevant, some more than others, certainly. And digital is key to this. And on the social front, on the social media front, we're about engagement at that level. It's an opportunity for us to listen to the customer, to hear them, to relate to them, to engage them, to provide answers. And that's a big part of the shift, I think. It's not so much like 20, 25 years ago. You'd send stuff and that was it.
Do
It was
mailers
one way
and
mailers.
here's our view books, right?
It's so much more of a conversation and engagement today versus marketing per se. And I think given now what I've just said about digital and social, I would also say that you can't overcorrect on that front. We still do create marketing materials.
Sure.
There's an expectation for that, both from the parents and the students. And I think the students expect those materials to be really sophisticated and
Yeah.
personalized. I recall my daughter, we got a ton of print material
Sure.
in the mail. And for me, I'm reading and reviewing all of it, probably on multiple levels as
Sure.
someone in the business and certainly as a parent. But I was also kind of watching which pieces my daughter would respond to. She's pursuing English, and she loved the University of Chicago's little postcards because of the clever writing.
Yep.
So that's how they're analyzing this stuff, and you got to be careful about or she wanted to keep a particular piece or a poster or something like that because it was just a strong design. So you guys can appreciate these
Sure.
things as people that craft materials and the importance of that.
I love your point about not overcorrecting because I think every day we're working with people that think, well, it's all got to be about digital. And, it's still a marketing funnel. There's still got to be that top of the funnel. And digital kind of falls from the middle to the bottom of that funnel.
Yeah.
And, it's that creating that awareness and that first impression, out there. It doesn't necessarily happen in search or social.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
gotta
You still
reach
have to
out.
build that awareness.
Yes.
We do an informal survey with prospective students annually We'll have them come in and we'll pick a couple of high schools and have students that are in the search process. And we invariably ask the question of, do you get stuff in the mail and do you read it or whatever? And a lot of it's counterintuitive to us because they end up saying, yeah, I do like getting the stuff in the mail. It's kind of like getting a birthday card. So, it goes to that idea of creating personalized materials for
Sure.
them. And so it's part of the mix, but, we're looking at two audiences when we send those materials.
Sure.
So, Dave, I'm curious. Marquette's a Jesuit school, it's a private school. How do you compete with state universities, or do you even consider them competitors?
Yeah, I actually think it's certainly a competitive landscape these days. And a little context, Marquette University is Catholic Jesuit University. Most of our students come from outstate. Probably 60% of them come from out of the state.
Wow.
So, for example, UWM, I guess that would be flipped. Maybe they'd have, 2/3 of their
Or more,
come
right.
from Milwaukee. So for us, it costs more to come from outstate. And so the variance in the pricing isn't that great.
Sure.
Now, if we're competing with an in-state school, there's certainly an advantage on the price level.
Sure.
And, with the price of college these days, parents are certainly looking at that as a component of their evaluation. Some people make a decision based off a $500 difference. It's amazing how competitive on the price front there is.
Is the religious affiliation a big
Yeah, so
part of this?
so this goes to brand differentiation, right?
Sure.
And that's an important component of our presenting the university is our Catholic Jesuit roots. It's certainly a cornerstone of who we are, and we want to portray that front and center.
So you think that kind of gives you a little bit of an advantage against a private school?
Well, I think we're also speaking to an audience that's looking for that.
Right.
I'd say, our 2017 students that came in, 60% were from Catholic schools. Another 23% were from Christian schools. So that's over 80% that have some religious connection or affiliation. So it would be foolish for us not to recognize and highlight those aspects.
Absolutely.
So who would you look at your competitive set then? So if a lot of your people are coming from out of state, then they're obviously considering others out of state schools as well. So do you feel your competitive set is more the Loyolas, the Notre Dames, and those types, that people that have made the decision, do they make the decision first, I'm going to a Jesuit school, and
Yes.
then which one?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of criteria that we look at, but certainly one is, our Catholic Jesuit competitors is one of those,
Right.
And there are 28 Jesuit schools in the country.
Okay.
So, I think there's something like 3,000 schools across the country. So, we can narrow it down and that's okay. We're good
Right.
with that. Also aspirant schools that we want to compete with, we look at them as competitors. And then certainly there are schools in our own backyard too, UW-Madison,
Sure.
UW-Milwaukee, others. So, yeah, we kind of track all of that. But we do have some, with the Catholic Jesuit angle, they're going to look at a Xavier, they're going to look at Creighton, they're going to look at Loyola in Chicago, perhaps along with us, that kind of thing.
What kind of role does sports play?
Yeah, I think our president is fond of saying it's sort of a front porch for, awareness of Marquette University. And, I think it captures some of the energy of the university. As you said, Dan, earlier, helps when you win. But I think the athletes are great ambassadors for us, too. These are people that really have kind of learned to manage their time, their schedules. It's kind of like a 40-hour-a-week commitment to be in a college sport on top of 15 credits, and they manage it, and they do it. And so they're wonderful ambassadors for the university across the country and their
Yes.
travels. Plus, it's great to have athletics because it gives you a little bit of an edge to those that don't have it. So, for example, we're a Big East school. So every television broadcast, we're able to have a public service announcement about the university to a national audience, whether it's
then
basketball
college
or
basketball is
volleyball or whatever.
so huge.
Yeah. So,
But don't you wish you had football too?
Marquette did have a football team.
They did.
Long
Long
way
ago,
back,
yeah.
years ago.
I did
yeah.
not know that.
Yeah. There's some T-shirt out there that says, we haven't lost in like 40 years because we haven't had a team.
Because we haven't had a
40
team in
years.
40 years.
Yeah, whatever the date was. But men's basketball is our primary. But there's a whole host of other athletic offerings for spectators. It's exciting as we are entering into a number of those seasons right now. And it's become a real true thing for the spirit of the campus community, too. It gives our students opportunities to be engaged on another level. And it's something we use in our marketing materials, certainly. And this year, if I may expand on this, it's really exciting because we're, going to be in the Fiserv Forum for our games.
Awesome. Yeah, that's got to be very exciting.
Very cool. So let's talk about, at one point, you mentioned that you worked for a small boutique agency. So you worked on the agency side like we are, but then you went over to the client side working for Marquette. How different is it working as an agency versus being on the client side? What's your difference in perspective?
I'm very inspired by the fact that there's life after an agency, and especially 25 years at one.
Yeah. When I came over, it was, in some respects, there were some similarities. We were about similar size to the agency I left. We're 31 people in our office.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the similar skill sets. You just have one big client.
Right.
But it's varied and it's diverse and it's always changing. And as you can imagine, you have a very youthful, vital kind of audience as a core audience. And there's always things happening. So it's been really, it's really been fun.
How much student involvement is there in running a department of that size in at a university?
Yeah. Well, we actually in our office have each semester about 12 interns.
Awesome.
And that's really kind of gives us continued understanding of that core
you
audience.
get the pick of the litter before they come out into the world for us.
Well, and they're so good at social media and other areas, and we have them in all areas of the office. So whether it's social or video production or editorial or event planning and all sorts of things. So great experience for them, and it's a win-win because we really benefit from their youthful enthusiasm and ideas.
Yeah, and you have some really great programs over at Marquette, even when it comes to public policy and what you're doing there and really kind of being on the forefront of national issues. And that's very cool.
Yeah. When I was thinking about this, we post a news brief every couple of days of what's out there and the kind of press we might be getting on things. So I thought I'd just read a little of it if I could, because it'll give you an insight into sort of the variety of the university.
Sure.
So top stories. Marquette ushers in era of digital dentistry. Marquette student rights play white privilege. Marquette President Michael Lovell discusses trauma at the monthly meeting of Scaling Wellness in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Visiting Assistant Professor of Educational Policy and Leadership discusses issues facing educators and students. It goes on and on. Supply chain management, Marquette Law School poll. Professor of Political Science discussing court nominations.
Yeah.
All this in a couple of days is what happens. Street art for on gala at the Haggerty Museum. So you can imagine how invigorating that is.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
It's like you're working in a
Exciting.
newsroom.
Well, and
Besides,
that's maybe, again, to your original question, that's the difference, too.
Sure.
When I came to the university, the office is a little bit more of a hybrid. It's marketing, certainly, but it's also like a news gathering organization as well, a content gathering organization. And then certainly communication, PR is a key component of that, too. So it's a bit of a hybrid from the agency model.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to give a report card with advertising agencies. What do you think we do right these days, and what do we do wrong?
Mm-hmm. So ad agencies, I think what they do well is they bring a fresh perspective. And I think, companies need that. They need that challenge. They need that, they can't see the forest from the trees sometimes.
Right.
So bringing in that sort of fresh ideas, unique perspective is good, and maybe a different angle on how they view their audiences and how they speak to them. I think sometimes on the downside is I think agencies can run the risk of not being good listeners to their clients. Being on that side,
Sure.
we're always trying to remind ourselves they know the business best.
Right.
And sometimes if it can be subtle things now that I'm on the other side, like if an agency comes in and does a discovery process and you tell them certain things and they sort of discount something. Well, that's not a good idea to do that because we have a reason for that.
Right.
So you have to be careful on that end to listen carefully and understand those nuances because there's a reason behind those.
Or if they generally feel that for some reason strategically that shouldn't be part of it, then they should explain that, but at least recognize the fact that you've,
Right.
because I think from an agency's perspective, you never want to just be the yes guy and just give somebody what you want. Otherwise, there's no value to what you're delivering. You know, I
Right.
think you want to listen, challenge when appropriate, and then deliver.
I totally agree with
Yeah.
all of that. And
Yeah.
if you can ground that in some research, that's even better.
Right.
And, and I think as an example, let's say an agent
Right.
comes in and they decide to do some mock-ups or whatever, and they maybe mess around with your identity or logo or whatever. That's not going to play well because it says, wait a minute, didn't you understand? We have actually developed this brand standards for a reason. And,
Right.
Now if they said, we'd like to talk about this, rather than just dropping it into a layout, we'd like to
Right.
talk about why we were proposing to do this, then I think there's going to be an open ear to that and
Sure.
listen to that. But you can't just bypass that and drop that in as an example.
What was that? I wasn't listening.
So are there any new initiatives besides playing in a new arena with Marquette coming up? Now it's a new school year just kicked off. And
Yeah, it's really
No.
boring. Nothing's going on.
nothing's going on.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of stuff happening. It's a fun time of year. On the marketing front, we're doing a lot of different things. We're trying to reflect the changes in the marketplace, the changes in media habits, and the media landscape. So, we're doing a lot of things in terms of VR, virtual reality, videos.
Yeah, we just had a podcast a couple of weeks
we
ago
just
on
talked
that.
about
Yeah.
that, right?
We've done all of our tours
Oh, that's
in
cool.
virtual reality. Or we have a program called TVU where we help out media and shoot stuff, and then we can pipe it through to them efficiently. We just, obviously are always exploring digital avenues and, Facebook products or, projection mapping. We're just looking at that the other day. Or, we need to always stay on the cutting edge. And, the students are going to challenge us to do that, which is
Absolutely.
great.
It's really great to hear that because there is so much going on, so much change in the world. And I think universities need to do a better job of preparing kids, too, for the future because we have needs from the young people in social media that, there's just not enough being taught and brought out there.
It changes so fast. It's hard for schools to develop a curriculum that's, by the time you put the class together, something like that, well, Google changes the algorithm.
Yeah. Well, the good news
So-
is bringing in practitioners and
Right.
adjuncts. And, for example, our social media director is fabulous and he's also teaching.
Awesome.
So, our video executive producer has taught courses in the College of Commerce. We have a number of people that teach as well. So the complexion of our team is actually really kind of intriguing because we have people on the ad agency side or marketing firm side who've been there, print
Sure.
world, digital production companies, and they all kind of come together. And so they have a lot of experience. But it always is changing. It's always evolving. And that's one of our values is to kind of have lifelong learning, which is a Jesuit value. The Jesuits come from a long history of education, 500 years. And that's a tenet of it is lifelong learning, and among many others.
So, Dave, what's the best way to connect with you?
I'd say LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn would be great.
Yeah, I see you're pretty active there.
Yeah, well,
I'm there daily looking around, and I love LinkedIn. So
Yeah,
but I see you're there quite a bit. So
Thank you so much for being our guest today.
yeah, I'm really pleased to be here, and I appreciate the invite, and I enjoyed
your
enjoyed
perspective
talking to
on
you.
from the outside of the agency world and now on the client side, that's really valuable.
Oh,
So
good,
thanks,
good. Well,
thanks.
good luck with your firm and the work you're doing, and thank you so much once again.
Alrighty then. Well, and if you like what you heard today, please don't forget to share, review, and subscribe to Brandstorm.
This is Dan Trzinski along with Nancy Christopher at Platypus Advertising and Design, an awesome company that creates perceptions that influence choice for a variety of regional, national, and even global brands on a daily basis. We hope you'll join us next week for another episode of Brandstorm.